Campfire question. Campfire question, where we answer your questions about life, the universe, and dump stations. We are Sean and Christy. This is Long Long Honeymoon, and this week's question is from Mark Adkins, who writes, "Love your videos. We've been RVing for about 20 years and have hit most of the lower 48 and plan to hit Alaska in the next year or two. We have been to Canada, but not in an RV, and I was hoping you could give some hints or suggestions for crossing the border." An excellent question. Thank you, Mark. A lot of you guys have asked about crossing the border. So in this video, we're going to discuss at least 10 tips for crossing the border into Canada. Tip number 1, bring your passport. What? You don't have a passport?
Well, you need it to get into Canada.
Yeah, passport, I believe the going price for these things is around 80 bucks. They're good for 10 years. Make sure your photo is a good one because you'll be stuck with it for the next decade. But if you're gonna leave the United States at any point in your life, you're gonna have to have a passport. One thing to be aware of is the Canadian border police will be looking for kids that might be being smuggled out of the country. So they're going to want to know that parents are traveling with kids.
Yeah, there's a lot of scrutiny with that as well. If you share custody of your child with an ex or something like that, they have specific requirements for traveling with your child in that situation. I think you have to have extra paperwork. So if you're bringing a kid with you and you're going to Canada, do a little research because it's more involved.
Scrutiny at border crossings is quite random in our experience because we've crossed in very busy urban areas and we've crossed in desolate rural areas.
Yeah.
And sometimes we've had very quick border crossings and sometimes we've been stuck at the border for hours.
We've had 2 specific instances where we've been crossing in a more remote area and it's taken a long time, even though there weren't people in front of us. One particular time, they actually searched the inside of our RV. So be aware that that can happen. And when they go in, they look in every nook and cranny. They open every drawer. They open every cabinet. So before you drive away, I highly suggest going back in your rig and making sure all the drawers are closed properly and things like that, because ours were not. And if we had just driven away, things would have just gone everywhere.
Crossing the border into Canada, it's kind of like airport security. You know, sometimes it flows quickly and then sometimes you get pulled aside for the body cavity search. It depends maybe on what they're looking for at that border crossing or what the border police guy had for lunch, what kind of mood he's in that day.
Or you might just be lucky number 72 that, you know, you're the person that they're going to search for the day.
No joking at the border crossing. I love humor, but this is not the place for it because if you crack a joke about, you know, all your contraband items in your RV, you can expect a lengthy search, my friend, because they'll ask you some point blank questions. You know, do you have any assault weapons in your RV? Well, if you jokingly say yes, you can expect to be searched. Did you piddle on the carpet? You just think you're going to wag that tail and all is forgiven? Well, you're probably right.
Pets are welcome to cross the border, but you do have to have the proper paperwork with your pet. I believe you have to have a letter from your veterinarian stating that your dog has had certain types of vaccinations within a certain period of time. I believe it's within the last 36 months your dog or cat has to have had a rabies vaccination. I know this sounds crazy, but we do see people that travel with birds and things like that. It's more in depth for them and they have different rules. So if you have an exotic pet that isn't a dog or a cat, you'll have to go onto the Canadian website and read all the details about what you need for those types of pets.
Yeah, if you have a pet alligator, just do your own research, you know? I mean, ketchup or smoky bacon, bacon fume. The issue with food, I mean, sometimes they're going to be very particular about what kind of food you have on board, and other times I think they don't really care.
Right.
What they're really concerned about are perishable food items like fresh meat, vegetables, dairy products. And if it's canned food items, I don't think they really care at all.
I know you can bring in legally 2 bottles of wine per person, and I believe it's 1 bottle of liquor. So they'll ask you about that sometimes, and you know, you just have to disclose it. And if you have more than 2 bottles of wine per person, they're probably either going to take it or they're going to tax you for it.
Sweet chili and sour cream, or honey and roasted garlic.
Tough choice.
What about drugs? Doing drugs, prescription drugs.
Prescription drugs, yeah. The best practice is to travel with your medication in the original container from the pharmacy that has, you know, the name of the drug, who prescribed it, what pharmacy it came from, etc. If for whatever reason you don't have that and you just have them in like a pill organizer or something like that, then you have to have a copy of your prescription from your doctor so that they know you're taking something that was prescribed for you and you're not just, you know, doling out painkillers to all your neighbors at the RV park.
Next one is a big one, guns. I think as a general rule, most firearms are prohibited to be brought into Canada, with the exception of traditional hunting weapons like hunting shotguns and rifles. If you're bringing a handgun, some sort of semi-automatic weapon, a bazooka, BFG 9000, surface-to-air missile, tank,
Yeah,
so no
all
go.
those are out.
Sadly.
You're just going to have to run people over with your RV. So if you are bringing a hunting rifle in, you do have to declare it and you have to register it. And I believe you have to pay a fee to bring it in. Your registration is only good for 60 days. So if you're going to, say, Alaska, and you're going to be in Alaska for longer than 60 days, and you're coming back through Canada, then you're going to have to pay the permit fee all over again to get back south to the lower 48. There might be an incident where you don't have to pay the fee if you're literally just passing through, and it's, again, like the situation if you're going directly to Alaska. They do have some exceptions for having to pay the fee, but I think if you're going to be like wandering around in Canada for a bit and you're not just really beelining it to Alaska, then they may make you register it and pay the fee.
Obviously, all weapons, they have to be declared. You pay the fee, you get your paperwork, and then when you're in Canada, you can buy ammo now that you have the proper paperwork. But without that paperwork, you couldn't buy ammunition.
And also, if you're going to bring a rifle of any sort in, you can't have it loaded. And I believe they require that it be locked away. So it can't be like accessible from inside your vehicle. So it needs to be like in a box or in your trunk or something like that. So they're more specific on their website. So if you're bringing a hunting rifle, check that out.
I think they care more about the AK-47 than they do the fresh bananas that you're toting, because they're going to ask you point blank, do you have any firearms on board? If you have some sort of prohibited firearm and you fail to declare it and they search your rig and find it, they will confiscate and destroy it. And that's just a fact. You know, I know if you look at a lot of the RV touring companies that are touring from the United States up into Canada, they will just tell you leave your guns at home. I know that's not going to be popular advice with a lot of people, but that's just what they'll say. So I think you really need to do a little bit of homework on this point if you're planning on bringing guns into Canada to make sure that your specific guns are not going to cause a problem at the border. For me, I just left my grenade launcher at home, sadly.
I mean, the next two things, number 8 and number 9, are proof of insurance for your vehicle and your rig, and then also proof of ownership. So you should have these things with you anyway, but make sure you've got it handy because they can ask you for it. We've been asked for it before.
You know there's going to be a border guard saying, Papers, please.
Also, no,
You
they
gotta have your
are
papers
going to
ready.
ask you some questions when you go through a border crossing. They're usually asking you what you're coming there for, like what's your business here. They want to know if you're there to work. They want to know if you're there for pleasure. They want to know about how long you're staying, what your plans are while you're there. So just be prepared for them to ask you some of these questions.
Anytime you go through a border checkpoint, no matter what country you're going in or out of, you always sort of have this feeling of nervousness. Even though I know I have nothing to be nervous about, I know I'm not doing anything wrong, but you're being completely inspected from top to bottom by these people that are looking for something to be wrong. So it just makes you nervous, even if you have nothing to be nervous about. So
It's like being in the interrogation room under the light where they're like, where were you on the night of June 12th?
Yeah.
And, you know, and you're just like, ah. So you sort of feel that pressure sometimes, but just relax and tell them what they want to know. And
I remember one border guard was really focused on like what we were doing and who we were working for.
yeah, because they saw our website name on the front of our RV. So they want to know if we've been hired to come there.
I think it comes
we
back
have
down
our-
to taxes. I
Yeah.
think they were wanting to tax
They
us.
wanna
They're just
tax
trying to
you.
figure out how can we tax these people.
Yeah,
who are
did we have the right license to be there or
Yeah,
something? And we're like, no, sorry, nobody's paying us to be here. Wish they were.
Yeah.
Answer truthfully and honestly, and you'll be fine.
I mean, most of those border guards are quite friendly, but every once in a while you get the Barney Fife who's in a bad mood.
We are at the border between the United States and the state of Maine and Canada, the province of Quebec. So this is very interesting.
Finally, a note about literally driving through these border crossings. Sometimes you will see lanes of traffic diverge. And I'll never forget one instance in which we saw one sign for cars and another sign for trucks. And, you know, we're in this big, long RV rig. I'm driving a truck. So, silly me, I went in the truck lane.
Well, we were concerned that the car lane would just be for smaller vehicles. So we're like, when they say trucks, do they mean like big RVs, everybody of a certain size, you know?
This is one of the tightest squeezes we've had. Squeezing our rig through these concrete dividers. Only skinny RVs are allowed to exit the United States.
Yeah, and you know, the worst thing is if you're in an RV and you get into some space that's too small for you to navigate. So
Right.
I went in the truck lane. Well, that was a mistake because it turns out the truck lane was for big rig trucks. And when we pulled up to the window where the border crossing guy was, his window at the booth was like 3 or 4 feet above the top of our truck.
Yeah.
So we're like having to hand our passport up. And he was looking at me like I'm an idiot. And he's like,
He was
"What?"
really rude about it too. And it was funny because, I mean, we were kind of in the middle of nowhere when we were crossing back in. And, you know, it shouldn't have been as big a deal as he kind of made it out to be. And their signage was terrible because it didn't say commercial trucks and it didn't mention anything about RVs.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, when you don't give people any sort of clues and they just have to guess, it's like you can't really be that big of a jerk about it.
He was like, oh, you should have taken the car lane. I'm like, well, I'm
not a
not driving a
car.
car. I have an RV. I'm driving a truck. So just something to be aware of.
Yeah.
So that's it, guys. 10 tips for crossing the border into Canada. We have crossed the border on multiple places,
Busy places,
from east to west.
tiny places.
And it's been a little bit different every time. I know that many of you perhaps have never crossed the border with your RV, but some others do it every year, multiple times. And if so, I hope that you will chime in the comments, share your experience with others so we can all have smoother border crossings into Canada.
Yeah, all you Canadian snowbirds up there that fly south for the winter, let us know what you do or if you prepare in any way for crossing the border. I know you're coming back into the U.S., but still, you know, you get asked a lot of the same questions either direction that you're going.
Many of you have probably never been into Canada, but I want to encourage you to go because really some of the best camping in North America is there, especially in the Canadian Rockies. You know, we absolutely loved camping in the Yukon, In the Yukon, I think we saw more wildlife than we saw in Alaska.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and British Columbia is just fantastic.
It's gorgeous.
So there's really a lot of great camping there. If you look at Canada, it's a huge expanse of land, and the total population is around 36 million people. Yeah. So the population is, you know, it's kind of like California.
It's not much bigger population-wise than Los Angeles. Los Angeles has about 20 million people.
Yeah, I mean, really.
The state of California, I think, has 50 million.
It's comparable in population to a large American state, but the expanse of land is massive. And that means there are large sections that are sparsely populated and really offer fantastic outdoor experiences.
Yeah, so if you want to really get away from it all and you want to feel like you're just out there in nature without, you know, having somebody right on top of you, Canada's the place to be.
Don't really be afraid of this whole border crossing process. It sounds like a lot of paperwork and it sounds tricky, but in real life, it often goes by pretty fast. And we've never had any major issues. We've been slowed down in our travels, but we've never had to like pay any fines or...
We've never been arrested.
No. Never had a body cavity search yet. Sorry guys, as always, thanks for tuning in. Thanks to Mark for the great campfire question. If you have any questions you would like to ask us, please don't hesitate to ask in a comment. We're always scanning those comments to find fresh questions.
Yes, or if you have a topic that you'd like us to cover in a separate video, let us know and we might choose it for our next featured video.
Till next time, I'm Sean.
I'm Christy.
This is Long Long Honeymoon, where we say,
Lo-lo. Don't forget to subscribe.
Oh yeah, subscribe.
If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you disliked it, give it a thumbs down. Feel free to leave a comment. And of course, don't forget to subscribe. Oh, you give me the paw. Oh, okay. I'll pet you. I'll pet you.